Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear California's in a state of turmoil. And I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office?
Now, any message from you to Governor Newsom or Karen Bass tonight?
Spend less on hair gel. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, what can I say to them? Not big admirer of either.
I don't like him.
Picture Gavin Newsom strutting down the boulevard like California's self-anointed crown prince, organic kale juice in hand, soaking up the spotlight. Then, out of nowhere, Mel Gibson storms in, swinging with the fury of a man still filming Braveheart 2, the governor's roast. Newsom thought his toughest challenge was dodging the chaos of San Francisco sidewalks. But nope. Suddenly, his ego is being dismantled faster than a wobbly IKEA bookshelf missing half the screws. This isn't polite political sparring, it's a cinematic demolition derby. And guess who's strapped in as the crash test dummy? Because Gibson doesn't just roast him, he scorches him like a Malibu wildfire in August.
We deserve much more and much better, and there is absolutely no adequate excuse the governor or mayor can make for this gross mismanagement and failure to preemptively deal with what they knew was coming.
Before we dive any deeper, go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe, because trust me, you don't want to blink and miss what's coming next. California didn't just elect a governor, it unwittingly cast the leading man in a never-ending political soap opera I like to call as the state burns. Gavin Newsom doesn't really govern, he performs. He's less of a leader and more of an actor stuck in a perpetual audition, flashing that polished grin like he's angling for a toothpaste commercial. Meanwhile, behind the glossy smile, the actual set, California itself, is collapsing in real time, flames licking at every corner. His resume? A masterclass in draining a state of talent, money, and sanity, all while somehow finding the perfect lighting to practice his signature smirk in the mirror.
And Mel Gibson had some very interesting things to say about California Governor Gavin Newsom's failure to prepare the state for these catastrophic wildfires that are ravaging LA still.
In 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just...
How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate? It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us and the way of life this nation was founded upon and promises to offer. That's all.
Let's take the homeless crisis, for example. California pours billions, yes, billions, into programs every single year, yet the streets resemble a dystopian film set where the director keeps yelling, more chaos, more desperation. Gavin Newsom swoops in when the cameras roll, puts on his best solemn nod, and unveils yet another sweeping initiative that sounds eerily identical to the one before. But the tents don't vanish. The encampments only sprawl wider, turning once vibrant boulevards into backdrops that feel less like the heart of Silicon Valley's neighbor and more like a live-action episode of The Walking Dead. And while that scene plays out, businesses are stampeding for the exits. Elon Musk packed up Tesla and bolted to Texas, while countless small businesses, suffocated under crushing taxes and endless red tape, are bailing like crew members on a sinking ship. Newsom, ever the actor, stands at the helm feigning shock, as though he can't fathom why families and entrepreneurs alike refuse to pay $20 for a kale salad, fork over 15% in state taxes, and endure the privilege of rolling blackouts as part of the California dream.
A lot of people have been coming out and calling out, Gavin Newsom endlessly, and the biggest one of all is Mel Gibson. We all know that he is a very big, open critic of Gavin Newsom, and he continues to actually do that, and rightfully so, because we already know that there's a lot of issues going on right now within the state of California.
And speaking of blackouts, California's power grid has become less an infrastructure system and more a late-night comedy sketch. Imagine coughing up the highest energy bills in the nation, only to be rewarded with sitting in the dark while your freezer slowly turns into a swamp of melted ice cream and soggy leftovers. Gavin loves to boast about California's green leadership, but apparently that means scrambling to buy electricity from neighboring states just to keep the lights on. For residents, it's less eco-progress and more like survival camp, except instead of roasting s'mores by the fire, families are tallying up the hundreds of dollars lost in spoiled groceries. And then there's water, California, with an endless ocean on one side and snow-capped mountains on the other, somehow parched like a desert town. Every summer, Newsom pops up with a friendly PSA reminding residents to stop watering their lawns, because saving a few fish ranks higher than saving the state's farms. Meanwhile, reservoirs shrink, farmers panic, and Gavin's big solution? More restrictions. He manages water like a toddler handles finger paint, messy, chaotic, and guaranteed to end in disaster. Honestly, if Mel Gibson wanted to film another Mad Max, he wouldn't need Hollywood sets. He could just point the camera at Gavin's California and yell, "Action."
Lost his house in these wildfires. And what you just saw there was an effort to recall the governor and Mayor Bass. Does his star power in this matter?
It matters in the sense we're playing it now on national television on a highly rated Fox and Friends First show, and that has gone viral on social media. And meanwhile, the same day that Mel Gibson says what he says there, and he's correct on so many things as far as the management of wildfires, Gavin Newsom's approval on the handling of the wildfires is only 30%.
And then came the infamous pandemic fiasco. While millions of Californians were trapped in their homes, businesses boarded up like ghost towns, and kids endured endless glitchy Zoom marathons, Gavin Newsom apparently decided the rules were for everyone but him. Families canceled weddings, funerals, holidays, moments they'd never get back. Meanwhile, the governor was clinking wine glasses in Napa at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the country. This wasn't just hypocrisy. It was hypocrisy plated with foie gras and paired with a $500 bottle of Cabernet. He wasn't leading. He was starring in a parody of Do As I Say, Not As I Eat. And the failures don't stop there. California's schools, in a state that boasts Silicon Valley and some of the richest districts in America, somehow rank embarrassingly low in math and reading. Crime? It's practically a punchline. Daylight smash and grab mobs sweep through stores like it's Black Friday on steroids, while Gavin calmly insists everything is under control. Under control for who? The thieves? Walgreens, Target, and countless others are closing doors because in California, theft is treated with all the seriousness of a parking ticket. Everyday shoppers can't even grab toothpaste without summoning an employee to unlock a glass case. Newsom's California isn't just broken. It's starting to feel like a live-action video game. Grand Theft Shopping Cart.
Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass, well, they were also suggesting that LA was under control. They had it covered while, of course, LA was essentially burning. And they've been blaming Donald Trump for all the chaos in LA, while Gavin Newsom has been trying to emerge as the strong leader of the Democrats as he eyes off the presidency in 3 years' time. But actor Mel Gibson has spoken out, blasting the governor and the mayor, rightfully so, for their disastrous.
Housing, of course, is another masterpiece in Gavin's gallery of incompetence. For the average Californian, the dream of owning a home has drifted somewhere between fantasy and fairy tale. Young professionals, engineers, nurses, teachers are stuck crammed into apartments with 4 roommates well into their 30s, like it's still freshman year of college. Families squeeze into shoebox-sized rentals, paying luxury prices for paper-thin walls, while Gavin's grand solution is to roll out yet another vague, affordable housing initiative that never seems to materialize. He'll show up with giant scissors, cut the ribbon on a 15-unit development, and call it progress. Never mind that millions of renters are drowning in debt. At this rate, California might solve its housing crisis around the year 3050, give or take a century. And then there are his national ambitions. Gavin struts the stage as if America is clamoring, please, let the entire country look like San Francisco. Because who wouldn't want to dodge needles on the sidewalk, shell out $9 for a latte, and endure rolling blackouts all in the same afternoon? He parades like a presidential contender, but his real audition tape is a blooper reel. Putting Gavin Newsom in charge of the nation would be like promoting the captain of the Titanic to head of the Coast Guard. His greatest trick, though, is spinning every disaster into self-congratulation. Gas prices skyrocket. He calls it leadership. Wildfires rage. He brands it innovation. Crime explodes. He declares it progress. Gavin could trip into a pothole and proudly announce it as California's bold new infrastructure plan. Meanwhile, Californians aren't asking for slogans. They're begging for power, water, safety, schools, and homes. Instead, they get a governor whose sharpest skill is perfecting his hair in the mirror.
If I were giving the governor advice, I'd say, don't be so overt that people can see the wheels turning. The obvious question would be, well, you've been governor of California for 6 years. You were lieutenant governor for many years before that. When did you have this epiphany? Right. And the answer is when he found that the Republicans could weaponize.
And then, of course, there's Gavin's unmistakable Hollywood attitude. He doesn't treat politics like public service. He treats it like a red carpet premiere. Every move is about the look, the posture, the hair, the lighting. The real issues pile up behind him like uncollected garbage on the streets of Los Angeles. But as long as the camera angle is flattering, Gavin seems satisfied. He's running California like a bad Netflix original, overpriced, overhyped, and abandoned by the audience halfway through. What makes it worse is that he's the poster child for double standards. He rails against big oil while gliding around in gas-guzzling motorcades. He scolds the world about climate change, then hops private jets for carefully staged photo ops. He lectures ordinary Californians about inequality, then retreats to Napa mansions that make Versailles look like a starter home. He isn't governing, he's auditioning for the role of brand ambassador for hypocrisy. And then there are the wildfires. Only in California can millions of acres burn to ash, families lose everything, and Gavin still show up acting like Smokey the Bear's less competent cousin. Every summer, Californians brace themselves for fire season the way others anticipate the next Netflix drop, except this season comes with evacuation orders and devastation. Homes are incinerated, communities erased, and there's Gavin at a podium, delivering his patented look of practice concern. Don't worry, I'll schedule another press conference while you watch your life go up in smoke. Instead of tackling forest management and infrastructure, he throws billions at pet projects and waves off accountability, blaming climate change like it's his all-purpose excuse. Meanwhile, the state burns, and Gavin looks like he just walked off a GQ cover shoot. Priorities, right?
We have to do a better job. We need competent, good governance. Now, that doesn't mean you can't criticize the governor of California for, I think, some very bad decisions over a very long period of time. I mean, some of these reservoirs have been dry for 15, 20 years. The fire hydrants are being reported as going dry while the firefighters are...
And then there's California's budget, an endless mystery wrapped in red tape. The state rakes in billions every year from some of the highest taxes in the nation, yet somehow, it's still perpetually broke. Gavin manages money the way a toddler handles Play-Doh. It looks colorful and promising at first, then half of it disappears, and the rest ends up mashed into the carpet, never to be recovered. Every year, Sacramento trumpets a record surplus, and every year that surplus vanishes like smoke. Nobody can quite explain where it goes. Roads stay cratered, schools keep underperforming, crime rates tick upward, and there's Gavin at the podium, grinning as he unveils yet another historic investment. At this point, historic has become Sacramento's code word for spectacularly wasteful. If California were a movie, it wouldn't be a blockbuster. It'd be Money Pit 2, Sacramento edition. Now let's give a slow clap for his environmental crusades. Gavin proudly promises to ban gas-powered cars by 2035, a bold vision, except for the minor detail that California can't even keep the lights on in 2025. Imagine plugging in your brand new electric car only to realize the grid collapsed because a million other people had the same idea. It's less Green Utopia and more Survivor, Los Angeles edition. And the irony? The state that lectures the world on carbon footprints still scrambles to import coal power whenever demand spikes. Gavin sells glossy visions of a clean energy paradise, while reality looks like a middle school science project that caught fire halfway through. And then, of course, there are the regulations. Gavin regulates everything except his own ego. Want to build a house? Get ready to navigate a bureaucratic obstacle course of permits, zoning laws, environmental reviews, and fees stacked higher than a Jenga tower. By the time you've cleared the paperwork, your kids will be old enough to retire. Meanwhile, Gavin acts baffled when the housing supply collapses and rents skyrocket. He's like the guy who sets up a 20-foot obstacle course, watches you faceplant, then delivers a lecture about resilience.
And look at Gavin Newsom. He tried to do this, was it a radio show or podcast, whatever he tried to do. Now he's busy trolling on social media, and it's cringe, it's falling flat. I'm sure they'll come after me now, who cares? Because Donald Trump is one of one. Only he can do what he's done with social media, with podcasts, in the way he's done it. 900 rallies in California.
Now, for a bonus laugh, let's talk about California's gas prices. Somehow, no matter what the national average is, Californians always pay more. People in Texas are filling their tanks for the price of a drive-through cheeseburger, while Californians practically need to apply for a small business loan just to commute to work. At the pump, it feels less like refueling and more like negotiating a ransom. Gavin Newsom, of course, points fingers at greedy oil companies, but conveniently forgets to mention the mountain of state taxes, fees, and regulations he helped pile on. It's like torching your own house and then blaming the match company for selling fire starters. Honestly, Mel Gibson wouldn't even need to roast this situation. He could just pan the camera to a California gas pump flashing the words, "Insert kidney to continue." And then there's California's shrinking population. Families, businesses, retirees, anyone with the means to leave is packing up and fleeing east. Texas, Florida, Arizona, they're rolling out the welcome mats for what they now call California refugees. It takes a lot for a recall to even make it to the ballot, but Gavin managed to alienate enough people to spark one. And while he technically survived, let's be clear, it wasn't because voters loved him. It was because the opposition was somehow even less organized than his policies. That's not victory, that's luck. Public safety? Another disaster. Shoplifting under $950 might as well be legal, and criminals figured it out faster than kids discover cheat codes in a video game. Smash and grabs have turned into California's unofficial sport, with mobs raiding department stores in broad daylight. The footage looks like Black Friday on steroids. Gavin's response? Pretend it's not happening. He insists California is safe, even while families are installing bars on their windows and businesses are shutting down entire locations. This was once the crown jewel of the West Coast. Now it's the cautionary tale parents whisper to their kids, "Do your homework, or you'll end up in California." Entire city blocks are swallowed by homelessness, open-air drug markets operate without shame, and the governor's big idea? Keep rehearsing for a national campaign. Because what America really needs, apparently, is San Francisco's dysfunction scaled to Washington, D.C. Gavin genuinely believes voters will cry out, "Yes, please, bring your brand of chaos to the White House." If that day ever came, half the country would be living in tents, gas would hit $12 a gallon, and every city would be competing to see who can ban plastic forks the fastest. His presidential fantasy isn't ambition, it's delusion, wrapped in hair gel.
We see a lot of the cities that you can't conceal carry, or it's extremely hard to get concealed carry, or California being one of them, Illinois, New York. I mean, do you think that everyday citizens carrying a gun reduces crime or increases crime?
I think the evidence suggests the opposite. It increases the likelihood of a gun death.
Now, let's sprinkle in one more layer of irony. Gavin never misses a chance to brag about California leading the global fight against climate change. The press conferences practically write themselves, grand words about sustainability, lofty promises about saving the planet. But here's the catch. Every year, California's wildfires pump more emissions into the atmosphere than millions of cars combined. His policies don't stop the flames, they might as well be kindling. He bans plastic straws with a flourish, then stands by while entire forests ignite like giant matchsticks. That's the political equivalent of bragging about carrying groceries in a paper bag while hurling Molotov cocktails at your neighbor's house. And through it all, Gavin's number one skill isn't leadership, it's presentation. He's less a governor, more a stage actor perfecting his role. Every crisis becomes an opportunity to position himself just so, tilt his chin toward the cameras, and deliver a speech that sounds like it was pieced together by an unpaid intern with a thesaurus. Californians don't need a stylist, but that's exactly what they've got. To Gavin, Sacramento isn't a capital, it's a film set. The people? Extras in his production. He's the first governor to run a state entirely on flattering angles and perfect lighting. He seems to believe he can smile, pose, and deflect his way out of reality. But reality doesn't care about his hairline. Reality is tents spreading across sidewalks, prices shooting through the roof, infrastructure crumbling, and the middle class fueling up U-Hauls. If Mel Gibson ever roasted Gavin Newsom, he wouldn't need theatrics, just a mirror. Because Gavin's California is already the punchline.
He plays this slick little game of words. He doesn't say crime goes up, he says gun deaths go up. Why? Because that phrasing triggers your brain into thinking guns are the problem. But let's break that down. If you've got more guns in one state than the other, obviously the number of deaths involving guns is going to be higher in that state. That doesn't mean it's more dangerous. It just means the tools used are different. You know where the gun death rate is?
At the end of the day, Gavin Newsom isn't a leader. He's a cautionary tale wrapped in designer suits and sealed with an extra coat of hair gel. California was once the dream, the golden frontier, the place where people flocked to chase opportunity. Under his watch, that dream has warped into something unrecognizable, a land of cratered roads, rolling blackouts, and price tags so absurd that even Beverly Hills matrons clutch their pearls. He's not running a state, he's running a perpetual PR campaign. And the product he's selling? Pure dysfunction with a glossy finish. The most surreal part is that Gavin still believes this blooper reel of governance is his golden ticket to higher office. He genuinely thinks Americans are clamoring for California's chaos scaled nationwide, as if tent cities, skyrocketing crime, and blackout roulette are export-worthy innovations. In his mind, he's rehearsing for the Oval Office. In reality, he's the political equivalent of a rejected TV pilot, overproduced, overhyped, and painfully unwatchable. If history remembers Gavin Newsom, it won't be for vision or leadership. It'll be for the irony, a man who looked like a governor but governed like a background extra. The hair will eventually gray, the smirk will lose its shine, but the wreckage left behind will remain. Gavin Newsom isn't California's future. He's America's blooper reel that nobody asked to see.